welcome. I am
Thank
here
you.
with Daniella Cornue from Le Village. I wanted to say Le Village, but it's just Le Village. She's in Chicago in a neighborhood. I'm gonna have you kind of walk through it. We know you a little bit, but I want to totally dive into you and your business model. You did a How I Did This panel. Trying to remember when that was. It was
Like
one of
maybe
our
a year
popular.
ago.
It might have been a while ago. Exactly. And I should mention that I only knew of you because we share an accountant, which is sort of funny because you're in Chicago. I'm not. And Michael, our accountant, I think a friend. I needed like a tax accountant, and I got a referral from a Chicago friend. And Michael was like, you got to meet this woman, Daniella. She's killing it. And she's in Chicago and she's in your business. And I was like, okay. And
Let's
then we
do
weren't
it.
able to connect because Juicy was in Chicago. And it's always like that conference is always so crazy. So at some point, I'm coming to Chicago. I actually was just saying how much I love Chicago and I need to plan my trip. And did you meet, so Jen Luby is in, I always forget where she is. She has Day
She's like,
House.
yeah, she has day house and she's
Yep.
up in, is it Wilmette?
No, what's the
Maybe?
other? It'll come back to me. I always forget and I don't know why. It's ridiculous. And then Sue Reardon is in Forest Park and LaGrange.
Oh,
She has
nice.
Sweet Spot. So she's in our programs. They just met each other recently. So lots of good operators in Chicago. Okay, but the exciting thing about your model is co-working and childcare.
Yes,
Yeah, we're diving in. Okay.
let's do
So
it.
tell us your story. How did this come to be?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I started Late Village when right after my daughter was born. I had a 3-month maternity leave. I had an amazing return to work program that was super flexible, where I was allowed to work from home several days a week. Of course, this is pre-pandemic, before it
Yeah.
was cool. And it was great, except I couldn't find daycare that allowed her to come into it part-time. So I started I was like, well, I just need a co-working space that has childcare. Clearly, this is a thing already. And
I have the solution.
I mean, seriously, I was
Yeah.
like, how is this not a thing? And I went through and looked, and nobody was doing it. And so I would get up, Jamie, I would get up in the morning. I'd drop her off because I was doing it for a while, and I would drop her off at 6 in the morning, get on the L by 7, shoot downtown, 45-minute commute, work all day.
Where were you living at the time?
We were in Ravenswood at the
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
Ravenswood.
I mean, that's the thing about Chicago. Ravenswood is totally in the city, but still takes you
Mhm.
that long to, right, get
Still
on public
45 minutes.
transportation.
Yep.
And yeah.
So you miss out, and so I drop her off at, 6:30 in the morning, and I'd pick her up at 6:30 at night, and she would go to bed at 7:30,
Yeah.
and I would just cry every day. I was
No.
like, I'm missing
Yeah.
all of it. And so I quit my job. And I started Late Village shortly thereafter.
It was just like, I'm
And
doing this. And your husband said,
my husband said I was crazy.
yeah, okay.
He still thinks I'm crazy, by the way.
Okay.
So nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Just, I'm always doing something new. I just have
Okay.
that bone in me, that
So he knows you're
entrepreneurial.
crazy. And this sounds crazy, but okay. He was on board
But it
with
usually works out,
Okay.
it's, you're crazy, but it works out. So,
Okay.
but he also knows he can't tell me not to do things.
No, but you
So
were
it
going to
was
go
like,
sign a commercial lease. He was fine with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
We bought the building. We ended up buying the building.
Ugh.
So
I just mentioned on maybe last week's podcast, I was like, if someone had whispered in my ear when I was in Chicago before Fulton Market exploded,
yeah.
hey, you should buy this building. If someone had just suggested that, my life would be totally different.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, good for
definitely
you.
been a big thing for,
Good for you.
I was like, I don't know, I thought it was a great idea. I thought it was a no-brainer,
So you're
but
like,
we
let's
needed to,
just buy the building and do
Mhm.
this thing. Okay, great.
Well, and I think financially it was like, well, let's safeguard it, right? Because if it blows
Yeah,
up in my face, then you
yeah.
have the equity in something that's a
And you
tangible
get
asset
another
and you can
tenant.
sell it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You
Or sell it and
totally
make your money back.
100%. Everybody listening, 100%. If
Yeah,
you can. I mean, now I'm in a market where forget it. I cannot
right.
own commercial real
It's
estate
hard.
on my own. So, yes, that's a further path, but good for you. Okay.
Thanks.
So he's all in. You're going to start this
He's all
thing. You
in.
bought the building first.
Hmm.
Yep. Did you
We
buy it
bought the
with an
building.
SBA loan or?
We did an SBA 7A.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're not millionaires. I tell this to people all the time. Like, we shoestring this together,
Yep.
401ks, a
But
little
you
little
bought
note,
an asset, and
but we bought
your
an asset.
mortgage was probably the same as what your rent would have been.
100%,
Yeah.
especially in Chicago, especially for the size of building that we purchased. I mean, the lease, we see this a lot in Chicago, especially like the real estate portion of what we're doing. It's delicate. You can definitely do it. Downtown is harder. Further you get
Yeah.
out into the suburbs,
Yeah.
leasing gets a little bit more feasible. It's just a little bit more challenging in the core of downtown. You have to really fight for that. And you have to luckily have a great real estate broker that works both lease and for sale. And we're franchising right now. So we're in the middle. I've done my location in Irving, but now we have a location in Milwaukee,
Yeah.
Wisconsin as well. And so one of the things that we coach people through is, can you purchase or should you lease? And what's really the best bang for your buck?
Yes. Okay. So you're the one whispering in folks' ears saying, hey, this might be
I am.
possible. Yeah. And sometimes you just need to normalize it. Right. We're right. We don't have some unusual, amount of money. We figured this out.
Mhm.
It could be possible for you too. Yeah.
It's a
That's
long-term
awesome.
investment, and it
Yep.
really it depends on what your family, there's a
Yep.
different level of risk. It depends on what your family can handle, but yeah, that's how we did it.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So yeah, describe the model size and division
So yeah,
between
so
working and childcare.
yeah, it is. So one of the things that I hope people take away from this, because whenever I do a show or something like that, people are like, oh my God, I get operators that reach out to me and they're like, I'd love to add this on as a service. And I'm like, well, it's not really a
Ah.
service. It's kind of
Mhm.
a way of life
Yep.
kind of thing.
Okay. I love that you made that
So
point.
yeah, so it really is, we have a space. Irving Park is our smallest location at this point. The other locations are opening up at around 7,000 square foot, in that range. Lake Village Irving Park was much smaller. That location's around 4,500 square feet, and it's really split up into half classrooms and half co-working. And so people that are like, I want to add this on first as a service. And I'm like, are you ready to chop up your
In
space?
half, like
And
essentially.
it's
Yeah.
just
Or you could
crazy,
divide however you think is appropriate. But yeah.
Right. It's just really tough. One of the other unique things our space is literally a co-working and childcare space. We have classrooms on site where parents can come in. We serve specifically babies and toddlers, which is really unique in the marketplace as well. You see a lot of these like play cafes cropping up and things like that, which I'm sure is eating into some of that co-working revenue that people are looking at, which is
Play
probably why
cafes
they're
are different
interested.
though, right? It's hard you still really are supervising. Yeah. So tell us more about, yeah, what the experience looks like if
Yeah, I mean, I would say like play cafes are even less supervision than Lake Village does. You have to be able to drop your kid off and go work. And because we specialize in babies and toddlers,
yeah.
that's a challenging age range, right? But it's a great age range from a membership standpoint,
Yeah.
because once they get a little bit older, they start school.
Preschool. Right.
Yes, exactly. So then you're competing with that. So for us, we serve babies and toddlers. Our classrooms are staffed with certified teachers with a full curriculum, and parents are there, so they come in, they work on site. It's all in one building. You cut, that commute time that I was doing and all of this back and forth. Our parents get to have lunch with their kids. We close the classrooms down in the middle of the day, and everyone picks up their little ones. They get to have that quality time, but then they drop them back off into the classroom for afternoon session if they're there for the full day. Peace out. And we do all of the things that a typical childcare space would do, but just with much more parent involvement. And that's why our slogan is community first, co-working, and childcare, because it really encompasses all of it.
Both. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So full-time is not required.
No, we do not
Okay.
require it. We have anywhere from 3 half days all the way up to Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
Okay, but I have to commit. I'm not doing drop-in. I'm a member. I've picked a package. Do I have to commit for X number of months or like a half a year? What does that look
Yeah, we do basically we have an 8-week cancellation policy for
like? Okay.
people. So, that way we're kind of know who's going to be in the space. But
Yeah.
yes, we ask people like, hey, pick your schedule. At most people, especially right now, are on some sort of a hybrid schedule and they're required to
Yeah.
be in the office on some sort of schedule. Children, frankly, need babies and toddlers, they need schedule, they need a
Yeah.
little bit of routine. So we tell people like, hey, pick what you're trying to get in here for so we can plan for you and figure out what's going on. We don't allow drop-ins. This is another thing that like when I have operators that reach out
Everyone
to
wants to
me,
do drop-in, like the
they
ultimate
do.
flexibility for mom. And I'm like, yes, and that business model is never going to work.
It's just, it can't, well, and if you think about it, JB, it's a safety issue, right? You can't have so and so from Mexico or from Germany or from wherever dropping into your beautiful space with people's infant. You don't know these people,
Yeah.
like with people's infants and toddlers on site. It just becomes a huge
That's part
safety
of the
issue.
community piece is that we know
Yeah.
who's here, you know each other. It's sort of a family. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like an extended
Yeah.
family.
Just
Everybody
like a
knows it's like
typical daycare
cheers.
would never allow, like you can't, don't drop in like at a, right,
No.
typical daycare. Yeah.
But on the other side of that too, it's like you drop your kid off at a typical daycare. You have no idea the parents, you
What's
don't
going on?
know the
Yeah. Yeah.
teachers, you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to we like to say we're not a co-working space. We are not a childcare space. We are a new model. We are the evolution of childcare and what working parents are really looking for.
You had no background in childcare. You have some other professional background.
I do. I do. I really had a business background. I had a degree in business and I worked in marketing and advertising. But I did go, when I decided to do this, I was like, oh, I better get educated.
Mhm.
And I did go, and I don't have a bachelor's or anything, but I did go and it's called a CDA certification and go through like safety classes, first
Okay.
aid, all of,
Yeah.
the CPR, all of that. I don't teach in the rooms, but I still like to, practice what I preach kind of deal. And I think that, I am also a mother, and I think that changes things just a little bit and go in like empty.
Yeah.
And I hired a consultant when we opened too, which is something
Okay.
I think for operators that are looking to start this from scratch, we really spent the money up front to put it together. Again, we have a specialized curriculum that kind of leans into the flexibility that is still a big part of who Lay Village is,
Yeah.
right? Like we still don't have the same kids every day and it's
Yeah.
super fluid and
Yeah.
we put the time and the effort into putting the curriculum together, hiring teachers, putting
Yeah.
all of those pieces into play so that we could succeed long term.
And your curriculum goes to each location. Is that kind of
Mhm.
the guide so that anybody who franchises does not have to reinvent that? They're really
No.
identifying a location and maybe customizing their decor, but they get the guidebook with the curriculum. And then what does the team look like what does the team look like overall?
Well, I mean, I would say like a lot of our team, we have a couple of what we call administrators that are running kind of the day-to-day operations of the space. I'm obviously not at Lay Village right now. I'm at home myself. My daughter's graduated now, so I'm not there all the time anymore. But that being said, we have to adhere to ratios. And this is like some of the stuff that
Yeah.
we talk about, we teach people. You have to have safety ratios. So our staffing is mostly in the classroom. Our teachers are very much in the
Yeah.
classroom. And it depends on how many kids you have. But, in our babies room, we have 3 teachers, 4 teachers some days. And in our older classroom, same deal, anywhere from 3 to 4 staff members. And they're teaching. We're doing activities and
Yeah.
we have what we call little hands, big body, sensory, and art. And those are kind of our pillars of learning. So they're doing these projects and circle time and all the things that you would expect from a quality childcare experience.
Okay, can mom or dad leave the premise? So if I want full-time daycare, but I have to go downtown every other day, can I do that?
Yeah. So
Okay.
the sort of, I guess, is the answer is yes and no. So we have a program called a tag in program.
Okay.
Basically, if you're going to leave, you need to tag in another village member to be responsible for your little one while you're out. And
And
that's how
that's a
people use it all the time.
regulation issue, and that plays into the community approach. Hey,
Exactly.
we is there like is that part of onboarding? Do you explain, is that sort of an implied expectation of being that you're willing to do that?
Yeah. And, part of what Lee Village is, being a parent of a young child, being a parent, frankly, in general, but young children, especially, it's so new. When Nate and I had Vivi, we were the first people to have our daughter. We didn't have any friends that had kids. Our parents live far away. We were very like on an island, and
Yeah.
and we found that we were not the only people on that
Yeah.
island after a while. And so what Lay Village is kind of bridging that gap. When we started I have Lay Village, but it's named after the phrase, it takes a
It takes
village,
totally. Yes.
takes a
Yeah.
village, right? So what Lay Village does is kind of gives you the pieces to that. You're going to make your mom friends, you're going to make your core community. And so it's not a big deal to lean over to your friend who's also got a kid in the same class and be like, hey, I got a meeting downtown. I'll be back in 2 hours. And she's
Yeah.
cool. And you guys sign out on a little
Right.
form and off they go.
Yeah, and you're making friends. I mean, I just had this we only have one kid, and I was having this conversation with my husband, and we've no family anywhere around. And I was talking to
Mm-hmm.
him about the whole it takes a village. I was like, look, I think our life would have been a lot different if we lived with family, because there's
Mm-hmm.
so many limitations. Like he travels, I travel, we can't travel at the same time because we don't have that infrastructure, and we never made those relations. We actually we have a lot of friends who moved their parents here so that they would have that support. So we do have some friends that are close enough where maybe we could leave a kid, there's a wedding coming up and we're going through like, how do we go to the wedding? Without, we have
Mm-hmm.
to probably have to fly in a grandparent, you
Yeah.
know? But Lay Village for us would have been that, like, how do you build your village when you don't have one? And
Yeah.
others being in the same boat, and that like those relationships where you could lean on each other for that kind of thing. I mean, it's becoming more common. It's like people used to grow up and live near home, right? And they'd have
Yeah.
aunts and uncles and parents. And that's still the case, but it's really shifting. People move far away and don't have that. So to your point, like this evolved new way of living. It's so interesting. Okay, so I'm curious in terms of compliance. So you have a new location in
Mm-hmm.
Wisconsin.
We do.
So you had to sort of start from scratch in terms of learning. So does uh Lay Village do that on behalf of your franchisee? Who's in charge of learning the
we
regulations
kind
for a
of
local
we kind
market?
of look at it together. Being in Wisconsin, it's not California. California scares the bejesus out of me because they are the red
Yeah.
tape state, right? Illinois is pretty red tapey, so as well. So luckily, some of the states that we're looking at right now, we're really looking to close down Chicago like this year. This is our big push. Is I really want to get these into Chicago. But we had just the most amazing owner operator in Kelly Overton who runs and owns the Milwaukee
Okay.
Brewers Hill location. And so when I actually I was like, you've got to do this. You would be so great at it. She was moving away into Milwaukee. And I was like, I'm serious. I stalked her for 8 months. I was like, please do this for me. You're going to be so great. And she did. She ended up doing it. And it's been a roaring success there. We couldn't be happier. But we both sat down and it was like, okay, let's look up the regulations. Somewhat like, small business ownership. Sometimes I feel like I wear so
Yeah.
many hats, legal, accounting, like all these pieces that I need to know. But we, really we didn't leave her on an island to do that. We were definitely like, okay, this is the new state. You need to know daycare regulations, childcare, all of that. You need to know safety and code regulations. You need to, you got to have your stuff together to do this model.
Yep. Can you be a member of your co-working space without having a child in childcare?
No, we
Okay.
do not allow that. Yep.
Yeah. And yeah. And is that partly because of the limited size, or will that apply to any new model?
I think it will apply to any new model. Why would you want to work on a space with a bunch of
Probably not.
screaming babies
Yeah.
and toddlers? You know, and again,
We
like
don't
it
have
just
one.
like it lends to the creeper factor. I hate to say that, but it's
Ah,
like why we have had people like, oh yeah, but I'm like, why would you want to be here
yeah. Go,
without
you
like
can go
I just
somewhere else. It's fine.
there's
Yeah.
other places for you. There's lots of I love to make references to other lovely co-working spaces
Yeah. That would be a
at
good
that
thing.
point.
Yeah. So are the Chicago locations all franchised, or are you opening corporate locations as well?
We will likely open another corporate location. So I opened a sister concept called the Village Learners last year. That was the other location that I opened, and it's
Okay.
a pre-K concept. So it doesn't have, so it's off-site. And this is the one. So I said, oh, you can't have, if you don't have your kids on site, then you can't be a member. But I'm gonna say like most of the time with that, because what happens is our kids have been with us now. We've been open since 2019 and they're graduating through the program. And so I started Lay Village Learners last year. It's a pre-K concept where parents can drop their kids off, which is really like kind of where parents get after 4 years of being on site
Right.
with their little ones. They're like,
Yeah.
I would like to drop you off now. And then they have it's free for them to be members at Lay Village Cowork. They get to go down to Cowork if they want to Cowork, but they don't have to either. So then they can whereas like when they're babies and toddlers, we really require you to be on
Yeah.
site.
Yep.
Once they hit this pre-K4 kindergarten, you can drop off or not. And so that was my new experiment last year that I did. And I have been forbidden from starting any new experiments for at least 1 year. So
I know.
I'm giving it
Typical
a year to
entrepreneur.
breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm like, giving it a year to breathe. And we will likely, I really would love to open a location in like the West Loop, Bolton
Yeah.
market, kind of area. I think that market's really exciting. But this year we're really focused on, so we have a franchise location opening in near the Brookfield Zoo in Lyons. So we're calling it our Route 66 location. And then we have another location that's opening in Des Plaines that we haven't really announced. So I guess this will be
Hey,
your big break.
I love it. Perfect. Thank you. That's exciting. Okay. I was gonna ask you sort of, yeah, geographically, but to your point, there's probably still a lot of neighborhoods in Chicago that could handle
Yes.
this model. Yeah.
And
And
it is a
Milwaukee,
neighborhood
a
model,
neighborhood model. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
downtown, we want it to be in people's backyards where people
Right.
live.
That's really the
Um,
concept. Exactly. Create
yeah.
your
So
community near home.
yes, exactly. So, I'm hoping that we can find a great owner in Evanston, in Pilsen, and Bronzeville. Those are like if I could dream up
Yeah.
an owner operator,
Yeah.
like for each of those places, that would be awesome.
How are dads members?
They are. We've actually seen an influx of dads, which has been really amazing, honestly. It was when we first opened, it was very much this is a mom space. And now I would say it's like 60-40, like
Okay.
60% moms, 40% dads in the space. But our dads are like, they're hands-on dads. It really is the evolution of fatherhood too,
Yeah.
to see these dads take on
Yeah.
we have a lot of split memberships where like moms come in like Monday,
Ooh, so
Wednesday,
you allow
Friday, and
that.
dads
Okay.
come in. Oh
Love
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Dads come in like Tuesday, Thursday, and their family like splits it up and everybody gets space and time. And that's what really like the mission of Lay Village is really to tackle the motherhood penalty and really create equity for women in the workplace.
And you're normalizing dad does half or maybe all of
Maybe
the
all.
get the kid to daycare. And I know, yeah, I did a post on that recently because I interviewed the founder of Gable, which is kind of a marketplace, and she was talking about how passionate she is about, yeah, the motherhood penalty. And I
Yeah.
posted, there's a podcast with data that says the penalty is not gender based. It is a caregiver penalty.
Oh yeah.
So it's the burden, the things that mom takes on that dad doesn't take on. because I
Yeah.
also love like being in that space with other dads, like normalizing, well, dad can do the doctor's appointments too, and dad
Mhm.
can do these things. And oh, other dads are doing this. Because it was interesting, the podcast, it was a Freakonomics podcast, and this woman who had done a bunch of research through Harvard. And she was like, yeah, I don't really know what's ever going to change this. I mean, she was just like, I don't see how culturally we're ever going to move the needle. Her one suggestion was maybe if schools went until 5, right? Because
Mm.
there's still the
Well,
whole,
yeah, 3 o'clock.
yes, unless there's after
Guess who's
school
going to
care.
get mine today, Jamie? My
Dad.
husband.
Nice.
That's right.
You know
Dad's
what?
doing it.
I know I have my husband on school pickup today too, and it's early dismissal day.
Oh gosh.
So
Didn't he just go back? What?
yeah, well, they have 2 o'clock dismissal once a week. And then yes, we have Monday off for MLK Day, which
Mhm,
probably lots of
mhm.
people do. So yeah, exactly. So and that is something, the working from home, I still get most of the responsibility, but I do think the working from home has helped shift. Like that may be what has shifted with your dads, right? Oh, well, they can be hybrid. And so they could go to the space half of the time. And
Yep.
that's a
I
big
think
deal.
that I think that return to work is really just an attack on working parents. And
Right.
that I think is a whole other
I
podcast.
know.
I
It's so
really passionately think that it is a bunch of people that don't have, that they
Yeah,
just
the
don't
people making the
see.
decisions do not have caregiving responsibilities. Yeah,
Nope.
yeah,
Then they don't care.
yeah, yeah,
So, and they don't want them. They're like, cool, you figure it out, you deal with it. So I hope that people take a stand on that, and parents take a stand on that, and mothers take a stand on it, because it really does fall back on our shoulders to
yeah,
figure this stuff out at the long run.
yeah. So it could be partly a California thing. I had this conversation with this group of women who they would maybe be a consultant of the type that you hired. They help folks launch open daycare. And they were basically like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very hard model. You need
Mm-hmm.
inexpensive real estate and inexpensive labor. And they were like, otherwise, it's very hard. So it needs to be subsidized. And they were trying to figure out, yeah, I think they were sort of exploring, and somebody introduced us like, right, could they figure this out with co-working? And then could you get companies like Salesforce who have all these distributed people, but Salesforce wants them to go to some office. Well, can you put the daycare there? Because that's one of the hurdles, is right. Like moms
Right.
at home and post-COVID can't get daycare. And so,
Right.
all these challenges. So yeah, talk about what are the biggest challenges of the model. And I'm also curious, like, the profitability is childcare profitable without co-working? Do you need both? Like, how do they sort of interplay?
I mean, I think for us, like, it really is one big model for us. We do a comp on, what co-working spaces are charging. We do a comp on what daycare spaces are charging. And you really have to consider all of those pieces. You can't really separate the two. It's one big thing. I think that the woman that the group that you were talking to has hit the nail on the head. It's really hard, especially if you want to do right by your employees, because it's a really messed up industry where people get taken advantage of. And you're not going to come in and fix all of those
Yeah.
problems overnight. It's just not going to happen. But if you want to be a good person and pay a reasonable living wage, then you're going to have to figure it out. And so why we started franchising was like, I don't know that I have the capacity to open another location myself, but I can teach someone else how to do this and do this successfully. Profitability wise, I mean, Lay Village does great. We're doing great. We are a service that people seek because no one else is really doing it yet. Or I shouldn't say that. I actually should not say that. There have been a lot of people that have tried to do this and they do not succeed at it
Yeah.
because it's really hard to succeed
It's
at.
really hard. I know. Yes.
We've kind of figured it out, and we
Yeah.
are making it work, and it does work for us. So I feel like that was a really roundabout way of answering your question. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
like,
no.
we're
And
awesome.
I wonder, I mean, I'd be curious about your perspective on, because I would say like half of the folks who come through my startup school have an interest in childcare and solving that
Yeah.
problem. And I'm always like, Kim Lee is one of our coaches, and we're always both, okay, we totally get it. but let's talk about this and think about the model and how to make it successful. And they tend to really want to pursue this ultimate flexibility, which, right, you have a business, like my business background is just too practical. I'm like, I totally get it. And it's very hard. I mean, there are probably ways. Somebody sent me a website and they have nanny services. Some people are getting creative about like partnering
Yeah,
with babysitters. There are ways, but it's if you want your kid, right, in a curriculum-based program that could be
and
all
most parents
day.
do.
Well, I think part of it might, and I may be getting this wrong, but like parents who have full-time work or part-time, but they have to be working during that time. They really need dedicated, predictable care. But then also your model needs that too. You can't hire somebody to be in the space and then have two people show up. Right. You have a
100%.
fixed cost. So you have to
Yep.
make that match. And so the easiest way to do that is people who are willing to commit. So that is hard for mom who has a side hustle or has some sort of business where they aren't quite ready to commit and pay for daycare because it's not inexpensive, to
Oh no, it's
do
not
that.
inexpensive.
Yeah.
I would say too, though I've had those side hustle moms, and the problem we did, when we first opened, we tried this whole flexible, like really
Okay.
mushy thing.
Yeah.
That was what we opened up with. And I was like, whoa, this is not going to work
Yeah.
real quick. I will say, like, probably one of my biggest thing is I make mistakes and I fix them quickly, because if you let it flounder,
Yeah.
you're going to drown. So I was like, oh, but the problem was too, and I've always been really good about bringing people in when we make these big changes. And Abby, who's our owner in the Brookfield area, was one of those moms. And it was like, what I love. And I was like, but are you using it? Do the math. Are you really showing up as often as you want to? And then, you sit down and it's, oh, I'm actually only using this whatever, and then I'm burning this money the rest of the time. The
So
kids
she
are
had a fixed commitment. It wasn't enough for you, but it was more than okay, interesting.
Yeah. So it was,
Yeah.
and then the kid, I get part of this too is we can't just think about the parents. My biggest priority are the kids. I think you asked this in a roundabout way earlier, but if the kids are unhappy and the kids are screaming, because
Yeah.
again, for my model, we serve babies and toddlers.
Yeah.
If baby is screaming their head off, and mom, you can't not hear that. Your mom
No,
ears
the
are like,
mom alerts start
it does,
firing.
it
Yeah.
goes off. And
Yeah.
so it's like, and part of this age range is separation anxiety, which is a developmentally normal thing that kids are going to go through. But the only thing that cures that is trust and routine. And if you don't have trust and routine, it's going to continue to be a problem, and they're going to cancel. They're going to cancel anyways. It's
Because the
not going to
baby's
matter.
unhappy. And then, I love that trust and routine. That's just like a core sort of belief about how this, gets structured. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So what happens? So you mentioned the experiment with the pre-K. So
Mhm.
if my kid ages out, I have to leave. Yeah.
Well, most people, again, at that phase, like most people they're going to fit. My daughter, she was with me from the beginning. She graduated all the way through this program. She was at Learners when we first opened it. And then, you know what? She started pre-K4 at public school. Like,
Yeah.
this is what happens.
Yep.
Kids get older.
Yeah.
And so, but guess what? People are always having babies. So,
Oh,
then
good point. So they may right. Parents who have overlapping kids. I know I didn't do that. I was stuck with
they come
one.
back
So they
around.
come
I
back.
did. We only have one
Yeah.
too. But yeah, so or just new parents that are moving into the
Yeah.
neighborhood that have a baby.
Yeah.
Honestly,
It's
it
sort of a
doesn't.
positive cycle then. So you can,
Yeah,
I, as a working parent, have to go find a new co-working space, though.
you would have to go. Although we do allow alumni to stick around, because again, we know you. The whole
Oh,
reason that we
okay. You're in.
require this, yeah,
Okay.
once you're in, you're kind of in. Honestly, most people, they'll do, and we do allow drop-ins on, let's say, public. So Monday, public school is closed. Vivi is dropping in at Learners.
Okay.
That.
That's
So that's
awesome.
kind of like how we get around it. It's very
Okay.
much, we need to know who you are. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not taking strangers
Yep.
from wherever, but once we know who you are, then you're kind of in
Okay.
forever
I
if you
could
want to
stay.
use us.
Right.
Yeah.
But also no one stays at the same co-working space for eternity. Otherwise we'd all,
No,
that'd be
it would
amazing.
go crazy. It would be
Yeah.
crazy.
But there's a natural transition. And then, so do you have a waiting list?
We do. We
Yeah.
do. Waiting list in Chicago for sure. Um, I think Brewers Hill is still filling their older classrooms, if I am correct, but I don't know. I have to check with her
But probably
because
once
I
you
know she
fill
was
up
like,
and then word of mouth kicks in, I would guess
it
that. Yeah.
does. It just
Yeah.
kind of goes.
Yeah.
So this is why this was the other reason I was like, we got to get these other locations open now because people are just like kind of clamoring for it, and so you want
Yeah.
to provide that service to people.
What was my question going to be about? Oh, yeah. How do your customers find you?
That's a good question, Jamie. They find us, I think social media was like a big thing for us for really, especially Instagram was huge for us for a really long time. And we still dump that in. You know, it's always the thing with chicken or the egg kind of situation with marketing. I'm sure you feel this as well. It's feed the algorithm. Word of mouth is huge. Frankly, we
Yeah,
get a lot of
I bet.
referrals for parents that like are at a party and they talk to this mom and she's talking about all the problems that we just talked about. And they're like, oh my God, you should come to Lake Village. And
Yeah.
so there's some of that. LinkedIn has actually been something I've been towing into recently.
Dang. You
And
don't
I
run
feel
Google
like
ads.
we don't. No, we
Okay.
did when we did some Google ads actually when we were searching for owners at the we did a big campaign at the end of last year searching for franchise owners. But
Okay.
honestly,
That's a
no,
different,
we
yeah,
don't spend
different.
that much on marketing. It's usually our marketing is very earned marketing.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
But
where
I
it's
also
at.
love the model because you're getting co-working member plus childcare at the same time. So
Yep.
your whole like, well, we don't, don't really separate the model. So you don't have a separate staff person for the co-working side.
No, we do. We
Okay.
have one like kind of operator
Yeah.
where she, in Irving Park, it's Lily, and in Brewers Hill, it's Emily. So they like operate the space, and then the teachers are in the classrooms
So yeah, like
basically
the
the whole
content
time.
experts. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So okay, given that this model is so hard, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges of the model and maybe some of the ways that how you've approached it help to overcome those?
I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about them. I think keeping your kids safe is the most important, safe and happy
Yeah.
and healthy. If you come from that space, I talk to people and operators and they're like, oh, well, you come to our space, we'll do the co-working and you do the childcare. And I'm like,
Mm,
well, that's not what we do. That's
I
not who
totally
we
understand
are.
what you're saying too. It's so integrated the way you
It
approach it.
is.
You
So
can't, yeah.
even the design of even the design of the co-working space is designed with children in mind. And, so the furniture is selected a specific way, the layout, all of that stuff. You have to constantly be thinking about your kids first. And frankly, about your parents too, who have kids and who are going to feel really bad if their toddler
Fill a
spills
sippy cup,
ketchup
right?
right
Yeah.
on your $6,000 couch. It's
Total.
you have to think about these things. So I think that those are the challenges, but also the you know what's going to make a big difference for people. I think that parents are hard. There's the word mama bear is a real thing. And you have to constantly be coming at it from like a loving, respectful
Mm. Especially new
place.
moms, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so funny to be kind of on the other side of this, right? My daughter is older now. You forget how it feels to be a new mom pretty quickly. It's kind of like how you forget childbirth, right?
Yeah. Right.
You
Block it all
forget,
out.
and
Yeah.
it's probably the scariest thing in the world, and fear makes people a little on edge. And so if you
Mhm.
are always coming at it from a place of like empathy and kindness, you're going to get a lot farther with working moms.
Yeah. So you have to have a special personality to do this
You
model
do.
as well.
You do. Lots of love. Lots of love.
Totally.
I have a lot of times I sit with a lot of crying moms. Some, you know, that's part of my job is psychologist sometimes, or you know, or
Totally.
just armchair psychologist,
Yeah,
or whatever the phrase is, and just listening and letting them feel their feelings, and being present and being there. If that's not your vibe, I don't know that I'd recommend it either.
totally. Okay, is there anything I haven't asked about that you want to chat about for anybody who's thinking about this model?
I would, again, just don't take, it's not a light thing. It's not a service that you add on. It's not something that's, oh, this is going to be, I love the place that comes from. And I wish it was easier, but just really do your homework and do the numbers, do
Yeah.
the
Which
numbers.
you help with. So
Yes.
in terms of how the childcare co-working memberships
Yes.
and how that all integrates, are you finding, so you mentioned spaces some of them are a little bigger now, 7,000 feet. Is there like an optimal size that you like right now?
I wouldn't go too big is like
Yeah,
kind of what I always tell, because like people are like, well, I'm going to put it this big. You know, you can do those things, but you're going to be paying for them, and you're going to lose that sense of community because people will silo if you give them the opportunity. So I think that, like, we tell people, like, not bigger than 10,000 square feet. Like, you're not going to,
yep,
like, it's not going to pop.
yep,
People are not I think in traditional co-working, right? It's all about the amenities. Just remember, your biggest amenity is the
the childcare.
childcare.
Yeah,
That's why
keep it
people are there.
focused.
All the other stuff
Mhm.
is like whipped topping and cherry. Like, you don't
And
need,
unmonetizable space,
and unmonetizable
essentially.
space.
Yeah,
Exactly. So just, and you got to pay for that.
yep,
So run, again, I go back, run the numbers, do the
yep,
math, make sure you're doing all of your homework, because this is where people get themselves into a lot of trouble. And know your safety regulations, know your safety codes, know your stuff, because it only takes one parent that goes sideways and is upset about the way something goes, and they
yeah,
sue you into next year, and then you're all done.
yeah. So you have an attorney on your professional team, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah,
yes. You just got to be careful, protect yourself, protect your staff.
yeah,
Um, but if you're doing the right stuff, then you won't need any of that, because you should always be doing the right thing, and you should know it. And you can't be like, oh, I didn't know. That's not an
yeah. It
excuse. You got
doesn't,
to know
right?
your stuff.
Not
Right.
like your 3-year-old can say, I didn't know, mommy,
Right. I
or
didn't
my
know. Yeah.
12-year-old. Okay, we'll put links in the show note. Website, the best place to learn more about your
Yeah.
model and more info.
Yes, and we would love to hear from anybody. You know, we're happy to be present with people. And if you're in the Chicago market, we are really looking for those owner operators that are, you know, curious and ready to go. And then at the end of 2024, we are opening the Austin marketplace and the Atlanta marketplace.
Okay,
So we will be starting to take applications at the end of this year for those territories, but those are our next
roadmap.
outside territories.
Hey, I'm glad you
So
mentioned that.
yeah, so
Awesome.
here we go.
Nice. Very exciting. Make no small plans. Okay, thank you for taking the time to share. I have been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. Um, so thank you for doing this, and we'll put all the
Thank you
info
for
in the show
inviting me.
notes. Yeah. And hopefully we can meet in person the next time I come to Chicago.
I would love that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Daniela.
Thanks, Jamie. Have a great rest of your day.